We are here to talk about First Amendment Auditors 201. The PowerPoint presentation pulls up here. So if you may remember from last year, we talked about First Amendment Auditors 101. We talked about what legislative or what First Amendment auditors are doing. By the way, show of hands, has anybody dealt with a First Amendment auditor in their city or town? Yeah, that number seems to keep rising every year. So we talked through 101, what they are, how to handle them, but we figured we'd take another step into this and go to First Amendment Auditors 201 because Mayor Anderson and I, Mayor Anderson more than I did, lived through an experience after First Amendment Auditor 101 session, and we realized there's more to this than just 101. So we're going to start the conversation. Mary, is she back there? Okay, well, all right. So we're going to start the conversation of going through First Amendment Auditors 101 first. Just a quick primer on that. Just remind you of what we're dealing with. First thing, a couple of legal concepts to always keep in mind. First of all, the question is there a right to record? And is there a right to record anywhere? The answer to the question is yes, there's a right to record, but no, there's not a right to record anywhere. That's important to keep in mind because everybody's they may come to you and say, with a camera in your face, and say, I get to do whatever I want to do. I pay taxes in this building or for this building. I do whatever I want to do. I get to record you, and I'm going to follow you into the bathroom. Who thinks you should be able to follow somebody in the bathroom and record? Absolutely not, right? So we know just instinctively as human beings that you can't record somebody in the bathroom, which means there are limitations on where you can record. The Constitution has talked about this as well, but we're going to start with the state law about this. The state law has talked about that there is a right to allow people to record, to have a recording device in a place that is open and accessible to the public. Is your bathrooms open and accessible to the public? In a sense, but not in the sense you can go follow somebody into a stall or stand over their shoulder at a urinal, right? We know that's not what it means. So yes, you have a right, you can go into the restroom to use it, but it's not accessible to do anything other than your business. But there is a right under Arkansas law to allow someone to record people doing government work. Now, it presents a risk to the physical safety of anyone present, or it is in a public drinking water facility, treatment facility, you can't record there. I don't want to get hung up on the law too much, obviously. I just want to make a point that Arkansas law, state law, statutory law talks about the right to record, and the Constitution also talks about the right to record, but not to record anywhere. So again, you're going to get the comment, but my taxes pay for this building. But the U.S. Supreme Court has talked about this. There's nothing in the Constitution that requires the government to allow free access to all who wish to exercise their right to free speech on each type of government property without the respect to the nature of the property or to the disruption that might be caused by the speaker's activities. Again, I don't want to get too deep into the law. I want to point out, though, that the Constitution or the Supreme Court has talked about that the nature of the property, the nature of the public facility is important, and the disruption that it may cause is also important to know when you can and what you can do to limit First Amendment auditors' ability to record. Now, if anybody minds sharing with me, if you don't mind sharing, what was your experience with a First Amendment auditor? You want to share? Okay. Were they from people inside the county? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, really? Oh, yeah. We had the HR director of Sherwood at. Oh, so at least one Arkansas, right? We had the HR director in Sherwood was called by somebody in Ohio and called what's the North Korean leader Kim Jong Un. She was called Kim Jong Un, which I thought was weird that because she didn't let anyway. But anyway, the point is that you're going to get a lot of these calls from people out of state. A lot of these auditors are going to come from out of state, but a lot of them are going to come from inside the state as well. And we're going to talk about one in particular. So again, not to dive into the fundamentals so much of the law, but the fact is they can record, but they can't record anywhere and without any sort of limitations. If they're going up there and causing a problem, if they're sticking in your face and hitting you in the face with it, that's obviously assault and battery. So you can't allow that. Can't go in the restroom. And we'll talk a little bit more about other things that you can do. You can actually say where they can and can't go. Who here has an HR department? Okay, and there's personnel files in the HR department, right? So do you think it's okay for someone to walk in and say, I want you to open up the file. I'm FOI in the personnel file. I want you to open it up and I want to record every page of this particular employee's file. Do you want somebody to come in and record if an employee has an issue with another employee and wants to sit down confidentially with the HR director? Do you think a First Amendment auditor should walk into there and be able to record that conversation? It's confidential situation, right? Confidential conversation. No. So there's limitations that you can place. City Hall is not an absolute public forum. And what I mean by that is people have access to the building. People can come in and do city business, but there's certain things that you don't have to allow. You don't have to allow outright disruption to your building. But the key is what constitutes a disruption. That's the real issue. So inside City Hall, you got to be very careful with where you limit where people can do things. So if you're going to limit particular situations or particular rooms and say you can't go to this room, you need to put a sign up. You need to put a policy in place. You need to make sure that people know where they can and can't go and have a reason for why they can and can't go there. Don't put a sign on City Hall that says you can't come in here with a recording device. That ain't going to work because it's still a public building. But do you want to prevent people from recording inside of HR? Sure. You want to prevent people from walking into the jail and recording people in the jail? Yes, you can do that sort of thing, but you have to have signs about it. You have to have a policy on it, and you have to train your folks on that policy and implement it consistently. The biggest issue, one of the biggest issues I've seen is Joe Jack, First Amendment auditor from Ash Flat, comes to Little Rock and wants to be a First Amendment auditor, wants to record. Well, we know Joe Jack, and like, okay, come on, Joe Jack, you can do whatever you want to in here. But then Sally Sue from Hot Springs shows up, wants to do the same thing, and we're like, no, we don't like you, Sally Sue. You said something bad about us on YouTube. Well, Joe Jack and Sally Sue, it does not matter what they say, they're doing the exact same thing. They want to record inside a public building in an area that is allowed, that is not restricted for a good reason. They want to record. So implement the policies, train people in the policies, and make sure that you implement them consistently. By the way, we're going to run through some of these 101 topics just as a primer. If you have any questions about this, if you want to look at a sign or look at some policies, please reach out and talk to us. I'm trying to get to the 201 session as quick as possible because Jonas has such a great story about this. So a couple of things real quick. This is what you see. These are the First Amendment Auditor YouTube pages that you probably know and love. Right here on the left in the center, that's Jill Ross out in Sherwood, who was confronted. That's the one that was apparently as bad as Kim Jong-un, which I disagree with. I know Jill. She's not that bad. I wish Jill was in here to hear that.
Or Vladimir Putin type.
Yeah, more of Putin. Yeah, less Stalin-y. But she was approached. She was recorded. She did a fair job. Could she have done it better? She and I have talked about this. Yeah, she could have done a little bit better. She could have known the policies better. She could have implemented the policies, known the policies, implemented the policies better. But they had a sign. They had a sign on the door at HR that said no recording inside. And I remember vividly, the guy had the camera. He looks at it and he just passes on by. He didn't really argue about the sign because he knew the sign was there. He was arguing about whether or not he could film from City Hall through the glass door into HR, which why you have a glass door. I mean, it's a whole other big thing with City Hall, right? It's how it works sometimes. But she got obviously First Amendment audited, and then the backlash that happens, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. This is a quote from Caleb Alexander. They are everywhere. A cell phone exists. Caleb Alexander McKenzie, if you know, works in our office, and I thought this is a good quote. Something to very much keep in mind. I can become a First Amendment auditor right now. Put on my cell phone, hit record, and say, I'm recording all of you. And then I'm an auditor. There is no badge that I have to have that says I'm a journalist. Right? There's no such thing as a journalist badge. So another tip of the trade, if you have somebody that comes in and says, I'm a journalist, and you say, I don't know you don't work for the paper or the radio station or the TV station, they're a journalist. They're journalists. They're just a journalist. We can all say right now we're journalists, and we are journalists. That's all it takes. So never get in an argument with somebody about whether or not they're a journalist. You may not think they are, but they are, and the law has supported that they're just journalists. Everybody's a journalist who is willing to record and ask questions of the government. You're just automatically a journalist. Now let's introduce our friend, the Random Patriot. Jonas's friend, I should say, the Random Patriot. I don't know where this cat's from, but I know he's from Arkansas somewhere. Where's he from? Conway. Oh, he's a Wampus cat like me. All right. 6 legs, 4 for running, 2 for recording you. 93,000 subscribers. His top video has 580,000 views. 580,000 views for his top video. By the way, it's 93,000 now. It was 77,000 when we dealt with him about 4 months ago. So he's growing. He's actually now being referenced by the Long Island audit guy, who has, I think, 3 million followers. And they're now in some sort of cahoots. Not cahoots, not in a bad way, but they're recognizing each other. So he's growing in popularity. He was actually, anybody from Dover in here? Yeah, okay, so y'all know all about this. He came to Youngstown 3 weeks ago, and your marshal arrested him and put the guy's face into the glass of City Hall, and I can tell you that don't look good on YouTube. I know there's more to the story, obviously, but he ain't telling it. He wants one thing, to entertain his folks and get more clicks. That's what he wants. So he's not going to tell the whole story. Now, does that mean that Dover did the right thing? I don't know. I don't know the whole story. And that's the point. We're not able to really assess and judge what's happening because these First Amendment auditors are just showing a key part of this. Just to be clear, this is their God-given right. So I bless them for it. And we have to respect that it's their right to do this. So, but Random Patriot is a friend apparently of y'all back there too, like us. But he's getting bigger and bigger. He enjoys this. To put this in perspective, I want to, the circles got off. But at the top here, President Obama honors fallen law enforcement officers. 10,000 views 14 years ago. Over here, cops assault journalists for asking questions in Hot Springs. 580,000 views. Honor fallen officers. 10,000 people pay attention. A cop arrests a journalist for no good reason. 580,000 people watch it. That puts it into perspective for me. That's a big deal. They're not watching your city council meetings. There may be a handful, and God bless those that do, but they're watching this. This is entertaining. This is clickbait. I love these videos. They're fun to watch. Of course, if they're in Arkansas, I'm like, oh, that's not great. But they're entertaining. That's what they want. They want you to be entertained, or they want their people to be entertained. Don't entertain anybody. They love escalation. Escalation is entertaining. If anybody in this room got into an argument, we're all watching. We're just going to watch. But if you're sitting back there and talking about, you know what, I think John makes a good point, but I think nobody's going to care. That's not entertaining. No one's yelling at each other. Nobody's about to throw hands. It's not fun. That's the other big lesson here. Don't entertain this. Don't escalate the situation. De-escalate. De-escalation is not entertaining. I've been a police officer's attorney for 19 years. I've never once had a case that involved a law enforcement officer that was not entertaining. They're all entertaining because the boring stuff doesn't get anybody sued. The boring stuff doesn't make it on YouTube. The boring stuff doesn't make it to KATV. It just is like, okay, well, that's just life. It's boring. Remain calm and pleasant. This is a lesson I picked up from Michigan. Michigan has sent an email out to every state employee in Michigan because they're getting lambasted with the First Amendment auditors. This happened about 2 years ago. And they sent out this letter, this memo that said, remain calm and pleasant. That's it. That's the rule. And this is going to go away. That's been our experience. And I think Jonas is going to agree with me on this. Remain calm and pleasant. This is not working very well. Oh, sorry. Let me back up real quick. This is a video that I showed. I want to show you a boring interaction that does not ruffle any feathers. And I just show it to show that this is the way it should be done. This is in Fort Smith. Guys in a federal building recording.
I mean, I can't make it a public building right there. So, I mean, as long as he's up in there and he's not trying to build people's
personal offices, private offices, restricted areas.
So,
yeah, I can ask people whatever questions I want, but that's not even my point here today. You can ask anybody anything, sir.
I'm about that's
Yeah, because sir, and I appreciate. Listen, you're law enforcement. And I appreciate you not enforcing people's feelings here today. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. You stay safe out there, okay?
The officer's thinking, I don't want to be part of this. And there's nothing to do. The guy was in a public building. He wasn't recording people's personal information. He wasn't getting into restricted access areas, which tells me that the feds had restricted areas. The auditor knew better, didn't get in the way, yet he was still being given a hard time by these security officers. And the Fort Smith police officer, much like the Cave City officers we'll talk about in a second, were like, hey, That's the First Amendment, man. I mean, I can't do anything about it, and I'm not. This is not my thing. Nope. If there's a problem, call me. But this ain't a problem. It's your problem, but it's not a First Amendment problem. This isn't a criminal activity. This is what it means to be an American. This guy was good too, but I'll skip him. Well, actually, go for it.
Much more are you gonna? I mean, what do you want for talk? Take pictures.
Well, I was taking pictures of the brochures and everything that you guys have, and just to get a sense and idea what you guys accomplish here and what services that you have openly ready for people to take, applications, things of that nature, and just the comings and goings of what's going on here. That's
I'd
all.
walk you around and show you what we have.
Yeah, that.
Good response. I don't know that guy's name, by the way. And I say that to say because I know the next guy's name. His name's Juan. Because Juan's entertaining. This guy ain't. Like, okay, yeah, good for you. Walk him around. I like you. You're great, but I don't know you. Like, everybody in this room is going to be like this guy. There's a few that are going to be like Juan, and here's Juan.
They don't have a choice on whether who can come in and cannot. So what is?
By the way,
No, you will not.
To attack you, I can.
No, you cannot. No, you cannot. And I guarantee you won't.
Yeah, one. One escalate. We can escalate this.
Escalate whatever you want.
if you want to escalate, we can escalate. Yes, he wants to escalate it. That is what he's there to do, because that is entertaining. And I'm not knocking the guy. They're testing us. This is all about testing us. They want us to fail because it's entertaining. Now, a lot of the good ones want us to pass too. No, they'll say that, but those aren't exciting videos. These are good videos. Juan, I will never forget the look on Juan's face. Look, Juan is mad. Mad about what? That he's getting recorded? I mean, I don't know why he's so upset about this. But again, there may have been something before this said that I don't know about. Clever editing can do a lot of stuff. He may have called them whatever he may have called them. I don't think that he did. I think Juan's just mad. Juan was probably having a bad day. But this is the way not to handle it. This is the reason you get called Kim Jong-un. I bet he's closer to Kim Jong-un than Jillian Sherwood. But sorry, Juan. I don't. If you know Juan, send him my apologies. But he's been very educational. So we talked about this last summer, I believe, and we be prepared to stay calm. Place signage where appropriate. Keep restricted areas locked. Educate and train employees. Read and remember the policy. When appropriate, ignore the auditor. Do not overreact. Don't entertain. Don't argue. Don't entertain. In employment context, I like to say my 3 favorite words when it comes to employment law is document, document, document. Well, my 2 favorite words in this, or 6 favorite words, is don't entertain, don't entertain, don't entertain. Don't be entertaining. Be boring. Please, be boring. I made the comment, by the way, in Alabama. I said, be like Michigan, because they got beat by Michigan in the championship game earlier. So be like Michigan, be boring. They didn't think it was funny. I thought it was hilarious, but apparently Alabama likes Michigan more than I thought. So we're done with this, and we're thinking we did a good job, and we did. It was a great presentation. And then enter Mary Anderson, who did a great job, by the way, and the Cave City. So Mary Anderson, this is your friend, the Random Patriot. I remember 77,000 subscribers back in August. He's up to 93 now. So tell us about your dear friend, the Random Patriot, how this all got started.
Yeah, there is actually a little bit more backstory to it, so and I'll try to be really quick about it just to kind of give you some context. He didn't just pardon the pun, randomly show up. He didn't just randomly show up in Cave City. Turns out the reason he came, I found out in our interaction, was we have a gentleman in town. He's a veteran. Unfortunately, he's kind of struggled, I think, with some mental issues and different things like that. And it's been a long process. A lot of people have known him for 20, 30 years. You know, a lot of people I talked to that have known him. He didn't used to be this way. Something's happened in the last 10 years. Anyway, that gentleman, a year before this, and I think it was October or so of 23, we have a problem with this gentleman. He likes to follow police officers around and harass them. This all started because he got a speeding ticket for doing 55 and a 25 in a city neighborhood. And he had a German Shepherd dog. He threatened to turn it loose on the officer. So he's always being harassed by police. The police are out to get him. The city's out to get him. We're all corrupt, all that. And so he shows up to City Hall. He wants to file a complaint on the police officer, again, with me. I was not there at the time. We had at the time 3 ladies in the building. He shows up wearing almost a ski mask, kind of a tactical looking outfit on. He's got some paper in his hand. He's demanding to speak to me. They're like, well, he's not here. What can we help you with? Well, I want to speak to the mayor. Well, so he goes, the way our old building was, it was kind of a U shape. One of the reasons we're no longer in that building is because basically someone comes in this door. The people over here have no idea exactly what's going on. They can hear him in the building. He's going around beating on locked office doors. He's at the police department, which the officer on duty was out doing his job. He's beating on the doors, yelling, carrying on, scaring people. We actually had one lady that ended up locking herself in a closet because she was in tears and terrified. So he was being what I think you would term disorderly, to put it lightly. So an officer obviously eventually does show up. They had some notice that, hey, this guy may show up and be crazy. He did. So she let her officers know in a text message out to a few of them, hey, this guy's here. He's kind of in a mask. He's being crazy. They show up. They tried to talk him. Well, like I said, we know this guy. This is first name basis guy. Officer walks in. Man, what's going on? It's all on video. Some of you may have seen that video. What's going on? Well, I want your resignation. He's in the officer's face. I want your resignation. Okay, we need to get outside the building. People are trying to come in and pay water bill. We can't do this here. You can't be doing this. He won't do it. They end up having to, unfortunately, remove him from the building. He gets arrested, is actually charged and convicted with disorderly conduct. That case is gone and settled. He contacts Random Patriot, says, the mayor, the police in Cave City are totally corrupt. They're harassing me all the time. They're violating my rights. The mayor's corrupt. He's covering up for them. You need to come up here and First Amendment audit them. So that's why this guy shows up.
So it's not random.
It's not really random, no.
And that's kind of the first lesson that we want to talk about. Is that it's not. It's sometimes it may be.
It may be.
It may be random, but it's usually not.
Yeah.
Sherwood wasn't random either.
No.
He had gotten some reports that the police were doing something or other in whatever. Right. I don't even remember what it was because it's more entertaining to watch him deal with Jill. That was the entertaining part. What Random Patriot does is he comes and he decides that he's going to have a test. Remember, this is all about testing. And again, I'm not knocking Random Patriot. It's his First Amendment right to do it. And I know Jonas and the police department handled this appropriately. But the Random Patriot shows up to town. He wants to do a test on the citizens of Cave City, which I thought was really interesting. So he had a sign and it said F. And he did not just say F. Cancer. Held up the F cancer sign, and he's like, how many honks am I going to get for F cancer? Got a fair number. And then he tallied how many 911 calls there were for the word F. Or, well, it's recorded, so I can't say it out loud, but F cancer. 0 911 calls for the sign that said F cancer. Then he said, now I'm going to pull out the Cave City Police Department sign. Then, a lot more honks. Then, 15 911 calls. And his point, which I think is, I get what he's saying. He's saying it wasn't the word. It wasn't the F word. It was this fact that I was saying F police officers. He's not wrong. The word itself is not a violation. I can say it all day long if I wanted to, and the city can't arrest me for it. The police department can't arrest me for it. So he's counting the number of times that people call 911 about that sign. He also got a lot more honks. And at one point in the video, he says, well, it looks like Cave City hates cops more than they hate cancer. So that was kind of interesting. But also, people honk at silly things sometimes. I don't think it's indicative of anything. I'm sure your residents don't like cancer more than they don't like the Cave City Police Department. But he was making a point. So that's what he's doing out there. The police department gets these 15 calls, and to the person, every officer, the dispatcher kept saying, we're getting a call that he's in the church parking lot with a sign, and the officers are saying, well, there's nothing we can do about it. Chief's saying there's nothing we can do about it. You're hearing about it. Nothing we can do about it. They ignore him. Cave City Police Department are driving by because it's a small town. You see them every 15 minutes. They're driving by. Nobody stops him. Nobody arrests him. They do run his tags. I think the sheriff asked to run the tags, but nobody gave him a hard time. Then he ratchets it up because he's wanting interaction, remember? So then he starts flipping off police officers. Then he starts yelling at them, F you, cop. And what does Cave City do? Nothing. Drive by. that's what they should have done. Then the mayor has a conversation with a Random Patriot because he comes by City Hall, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is not like, oh yeah. This is Jonas and his dear friend. I'm gonna keep saying that. The Random Patriot. And tell us about this interaction.
So you're right. Like he was out with his signs. You know, of course, obviously, like you said, when he switched it to Cave City Police Department and phones, that's when people start getting hot. And he did make a comment about, even on his video, you know, oh wow, looks, you know, I'm getting honked. Looks like people agree with my sign about the police department. No, they don't. They think you're an idiot. And you know, he had a few little couple ladies in town pulled over and gave him a piece of their mind, if you want to be honest about it. But by and large, no. So my first message that I got was, you know, from our finance manager. She's in her office. Hey, this guy is walking around with a camera. Not really sure. I asked him, and this is probably what will happen to you. He walks in with a camera. She was like, "Can I help you?" He just smiles and says, "No, thanks." And then he just heads on down the hall. Well, she doesn't know what's going on. So she texts me and says, there's a guy with a camera. Luckily, thank you, Arkansas Municipal League, we had already been discussing this kind of stuff before. So as soon as she told me there's somebody in here with a camera, I asked him if I could help him. He said, no thanks, and he's still walking around. What do I do? I said, don't do a thing. I know exactly what he's doing. I knew that we're getting First Amendment audited right now. So he's coming down the sidewalk with his Cave City Police Department, and I'm standing in the City Hall. Of course, I'm like racking my brain, like, oh gosh, what am I going to do? He'd already been in there once. He had a very nice interaction with me and our office that first time. So he's coming back down the sidewalk the second time, and in my head, I'm thinking, you know, do I just lock myself in my office and pretend like I don't see him, or what do I do? And I literally told my finance manager, I said, I may regret this, but I think I'm going out there to talk to the guy. And so I walk outside. Of course, he's got his camera. This is how I ended up with the security camera picture, and then also a lovely picture of me sitting with him with his the Cave City Police Department.
Jonas gave thumbs up too. No, he's
no. So I just walk outside, and he's like, "Hey, Mayor," and I said, "Hey," and I said, "What's really going on here? What's going on here?" And he's like, "Well, I'm just, you know, blah blah." And I said, "Well, let's sit down and talk about it for a second." And I could tell he was like, "Oh, okay." So he's got his camera. He was like, "Do you care if I record you?" And he said, I don't have to. And I said, honestly, I would rather you not. And he didn't. Yeah, he said, okay. Right. I said, I would rather you not have that sitting here on my face. He said, well, I'm going to leave it recording. I'm just not going to point it at you. I said, that's fine. I said, but no, I would rather not have it. So we sat on this bench for a while and we talk. And kind of like John was saying, you know, I told him, I said, I get what you're doing. Of course, he was giving me the line of, you know, I'm not trying to escalate. I'm not whatever. Yeah. And I told him, you know, I said, listen, we know what's going on here. Like, you're obviously, this is a monetary thing for you. You're going to get clicks off of this. You're going to get avid revenue. The guy sells merchandise. I mean, you can go buy Random Patriot t-shirts and caps and stickers and all that. I mean,
they're affordable too.
John got a great deal on a hat. Yeah, got a great deal. I got
one free by the way.
I got 20% off just for the pictures. So anyway, you know, looking back, like I said, I was kind of debating whether I should go out there. I was literally, if you don't know Cave City, Highway 167 is that pavement right there. This happened to be about 3 o'clock when school was letting out. That's when usually our traffic really gets heavy from about 3 to 5 or 6. So as people are backed up to the only stoplight in town, I'm sitting next to this gentleman with an F the Cave City Police Department sign. And as John said, as we're sitting here, we're having this discussion, and I'm telling him, I get it. This is your right. I said, I totally disagree with your method. Totally disagree with it. I think it's the totally wrong approach. I think what you're doing, all it's going to do is make people mad. You're out here trying to get a reaction. He's like, no, I'm not trying to get a reaction. I said, yeah, but you are. You know that when you put this sign out here, this is what's going to happen. So first thing I did with our people, though, you know, and this will happen to you. I was getting calls and text messages. You need to send somebody out there and get that guy off that sidewalk. Our school kids should not have to look at that sign. Why are you not out there? I mean, I had some people that were pretty hot at me. And to be honest, I had a couple of law enforcement officers that called me and said, "Man, why are we not going? Do you want me to go out there and get that guy off the sidewalk?" And I said, "Absolutely not. Do not touch him." And I made sure that we had a quick little powwow with all of our people, and I said, "Here's what we're gonna do. We're not gonna arrest him. You're gonna be getting pressure to go out and do something with this guy. Don't take the bait. We're gonna keep our head very calm, very cool, because the second we don't, we're gonna make a mistake, and then that's when I'm gonna have to call John Wilkerson and say I just screwed up big time, and so we're gonna have your help."
And so he's texting me as this is happening, and the guy leaves, and I'm like, "Yes, we did it."
Yep.
You were talking.
And he
about,
thanked me.
yeah.
When he left, he was actually at City Hall, and he said, "Well, thank you for upholding my civil rights in Cave City today." And I said, "You're welcome." And I said, "If you're ever back this way, make sure you stop and get some watermelon."
So
I sure enough did.
did he really? Oh.
I did. I told her.
Yeah.
Yeah. I told her. Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, okay, we did a great. Caleb and I did a great job. Our 101 training in the summer was perfect. It was timely. It was executed to perfection. This is what we do, and it was terrific. So we're like, oh, this is wonderful.
This is great.
But then it wouldn't stop. It kept going, and then we thought, oh, there's more to this. It's not just about dealing with that auditor that one time. There is, like Mayor Anderson mentioned a minute ago, in this instance there was something before it. Right. These random audits don't seem to be random in our experience. There's something backing it up. So we got to think about what needs to be done, because the story doesn't end when the auditor leaves, and sometimes it doesn't even begin when the auditor arrives. And that's what we've learned about this. That's why we're talking about 201 now, because doing what Mayor Anderson did, you would think, I thought naively, that was it. It was over. He did a great job. We're moving on. I think you did too. Like, it's over. It's done. He probably knew better than I did that I was wrong. But no, we didn't know that it was going to be to this extent. So it continues to carry on, because now we realize that now that he's got this F the Cave City Police Department video out there, then now that's going back to the underlying event. That happened a year before. The criminal charges had already been not dismissed. He was convicted. They were done. No, he was criminally convicted of disorderly conduct. Didn't appeal it. He was criminally convicted of disorderly conduct. Yet, the auditor got a hold of it. And I saw the videos of Mr. Short that the Random Patriot put together, and they're fun. They're interesting to watch. But the issue kept going. So now you got to think about, Mayor Anderson knew why the auditor was there. You may not know. Now, you can ask questions of the auditor. You can do whatever you want with the auditor. I mean, as far as, asking and talking to them. They may not tell you, but they may at the same time. Did he talk about Mr. Short, by the way? Yeah, so you may not know why he's there. Honestly, when he first showed up, the Mr. Short's case of arrest wasn't in my mind at all. I just thought, okay, this guy's going to show up and see if we kick his butt out of City Hall or rip him off the sidewalk. That's what he wants. He wants an officer to show up and throw him on the ground and arrest him, and then there you go. We're off to the races. We didn't do that at all. He had a very pleasant experience. I showed him around. Honestly, he probably got about 30 minutes of Cave City history that he didn't even care about after he asked me a few questions about it. But yes, he did admit halfway through that conversation where we're sitting on the thing, he said, actually, I got to tell you, he said, I'm actually here for a specific reason. And he said, do you know Mr. Short? And I said, and then of course I thought, oh boy, here we go. Yeah. And that's why Mr. Short had contacted him and said, he didn't just show up to Cave City. I don't know if he ever would have come to Cave City. He came for that specific reason, not just to do a First Amendment audit. And so then we had to go back and make sure you knew about the Gene Short story, which you did a little bit anyway, right? Yeah. But now you know more. My point is that if you can find out why they're there, they need to be ready, because that backstory is now going to become the front story when the auditor puts the video on YouTube. Because he's going to say, look back to what I did earlier. Because this all happened in about 2 weeks span. Mm-hmm. The video about Gene Short and then the Cave City Police Department video came in about the same 2 week span. And now they're sort of overlapping together. Now you're getting people from Ohio and wherever calling about how you're running a communist state in Cave City, which I've been to Cave City. It's hard to think communists can raise watermelons like that. We actually can. Yeah. Oh, you can. Oh, communists can. Yeah. But no. So now you're having to deal with all the two things at the same time. The auditor, which was handled well, but then now you have the backstory that you're having to handle as well. So are you ready for that? Because here's the video. 195,000 views as of. I put this together in October, so it's after the August. And that's our video from October 23. Well, that's some of the body cam footage from the arrest situation. So is there an underlying event? Investigate the underlying event. Make sure you know about the underlying event. Don't pretend you know about it either, by the way. I'm sure you didn't go in there. Sorry. In fact, I know you didn't because you said, I'm not going to talk about Mr. Short's criminal case,
Right.
which is exactly what to do. Don't wade off into this because then, as your lawyer, I'll tell you this, don't say something you'll have to backtrack later on. So if you don't know, you don't know. And there's no need, you don't have to divulge anything to them.
Right.
They can record you all day long, but you do not have to answer their
Yeah, as we're sitting on the bench, he brought up the Gene Short case, and he said, "So you want to talk about that a little bit?" And I said, "Listen," I said, "I'm not going to talk." Like I said, I'm not going to talk about that. I said, "It's a case," and he said, "Well, you know, he was obviously fishing, trying to pull me into something. He wanted me to say something that I would end up having to backtrack or would screw us up." And I said, you know, I don't. Obviously, as mayors, you know what's going on in your police department. That's a given. It's not like we're just blind. Yeah, I don't know what the police department's doing. But I told him, I said, I don't typically get directly involved in police department matters unless I need to. Now, I knew exactly what had happened in the case, but I just told him, we're not going to discuss that. And he said, well, you don't want to talk about law? And I think in one thing I said, I'm absolutely not going to talk to you about that on camera right now. I'm not going to do it. And the only thing I gave him was I said, I'll just tell you this. There's a lot more to that story than what you have been told.
Yes, which he did not tell in his videos.
And he didn't believe me.
By the way, quick aside, my favorite part of that video was when you were asked by the Random Patriot, do you know the First Amendment? You said yes. And he goes, what are the 5 provisions in the First Amendment? And as you were trying to answer it, I thought freedom of speech, freedom of press, religion. I was like, oh, there's 2 more? I forgot about assembly, and there's another one maybe. And so it's fun to watch you try to.
Yeah.
he was being very kind to you, but it was interesting to watch.
Yeah, he did. He asked me. He said, "Yeah, as you're a mayor, so what are the first?" He said, "You know what the First Amendment?" I said, "Well, of course I do." He said, "Okay, well, what are the 5?" He wanted me to list them, and I knew right there. Of course, especially when you're in the moment, you know. And I've got a master's degree in American history. I could not think of the 5. I was like, dang it, I got 3 of them, but I can't.
I have waited for this moment to make fun of you for that.
But actually, in my defense, he couldn't name all of them either.
Yeah,
and he actually admits on video, he said, well, actually, man, I'm actually getting you for it. I can't remember the last one either. So we kind of had a little bit of back and forth on that. But
so know the underlying event, because it's going to be a part of the second layer of this First Amendment audit going on.
Yeah.
Second of all, be ready for the social media backlash. It is going to be intense for a while. Now, this too shall pass. I've been through I don't know how many crises with y'all. This always passes. People in Ohio who want to call you about this and call you communist, they figure out somebody else is a communist the next day, so they move on to something. And when you're not calling them back, they're like, well, okay, I guess I'm done with that. So it will pass. I've been through it I don't know how many times, but it will pass. But you need to be ready for it. You're going to, I think you got thousands of comments over 2 weeks, some death threats, some profanity, a lot of profanity. And then you had to be ready to know what you can do about the social media. This could be a whole separate class. What I'll tell you is that on the League's website is our sample or model social media policy. I developed this after a case in Walnut Ridge where they arrested a guy at a railroad track. Long story short, some Georgetown lawyers came down to sue the city. And we knew, the officer probably didn't handle it the right way. So we developed with Georgetown this model policy, the sample policy. So if you want to know more about it, go to our website and learn more about it. But I'll give you some quick things. One, you can't really do a whole lot about profanity. There's just not a whole lot you can do about it. You can do a lot about pornography if they put links to whatever porn site they put on there, or they put images of porn. You can take that sort of stuff down, obviously. What I really want to talk about is death threats or incitements to violence. You can also take incitements to violence down. But if I ever see that mayor, I'm gonna whoop his butt. That's not enough to take it down. Because again, real quick, when you're putting comments on Facebook, it's a public Facebook page. You are creating it and setting it up as a public forum for people to interact with the government. I can't make it to City Hall every council meeting, so I'm going to interact with the government through Facebook messaging. So that's the point. You can do that. So you got to be careful what you take down, because you run into First Amendment violations. So back to incitement. Next time I'm in town, I'm from Ohio, I'm going to kick Mary Anderson's butt. Can't take that down. If he says, join me at 2 p.m. in front of City Hall, we're going to beat up Mary Anderson together. I'm bringing donuts. You bring the coffee. then you can probably take that down. But you got to be very careful about it. And I would encourage you to always call us, or really start with your city attorney, but call us and we can help navigate that for you, because I can tell you it's really tricky to take down comments. Our general rule is you either allow everything or you allow nothing. You do not have to allow comments. Now, if you allow comments anywhere, you have to allow it everywhere. If you allow comments on, hey, what do y'all think about the new park going on the east side of town? Then you can't then block comments when you say, what do y'all think about the police department? And kick and say, we're not allowing bad comments, or just saying we're not allowing comments at all on this particular issue. It is an all or none situation. Yes.
Question is, sometimes break with the state. Before it gets
Yeah.
no can't
Right.
let's switch that one in before we get.
I think it'd be fine, because it was just a timing issue. But that's not a great situation, obviously, but I would put something in there. I would probably recommend saying we don't allow comments. We didn't get to turn it off in time. We're going to keep yours up there, but just so everybody else knows, we do not allow comments. And this one slipped through. We're not trying to censor speech. That's what I would probably recommend that you do. Education is never a bad thing, and so that's what I'd recommend.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Right. Mayor Marshall. Better to have it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, better to have it. I don't know how Facebook deals with once you delete comments, if it keeps it somewhere. A city, I think you asked me this too. What do you do with the comments that are already existing on the Cave City website? I don't know the answer to that. But yes, keep it to all. There's software that does it? Okay, perfect. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a commercial. You can limit commercial speech. So if I'm trying to sell my well, that's interesting. If you sell the Random Patriot gear on the comment section, but typically if you're trying to sell something, then no, you don't have to allow that either. I wouldn't go so far. There's some argument that the 11th Circuit in Alabama and Florida has made the case, or there's an opinion that says that you can limit comments that are unrelated to the post. That's not our law. I wouldn't recommend that. So yeah, I think you can take away scam comments as well. But again, keep them and call me to make sure if you don't mind. I'd love to know more about this. This is a burgeoning issue. This is a big issue, and it's continuing to evolve. And the 11th Circuit is like I said, Florida, Alabama. They're really leading the charge right now on law when it comes to this. So I'm keeping a very close eye on them. But I want to know what you're encountering as well. Now, what did you do when you? Because we talked about this a lot.
About with the Facebook
Yeah, with the
pages.
Facebook page.
So years ago, a previous police chief had set up a Facebook group, and he had called it Cave City Police Department. And we won't get in the weeds on Facebook, but basically, a lot of you know probably you can have a Facebook group or you can have a Facebook page. The Facebook groups, you can't turn off commenting or anything like that. Our police department Facebook group basically was rendered useless, unfortunately, by people from all over the country, some around the world, that were commenting, profanity, threats, you tyrants, blah, blah, blah. We can't take them off. I can't do anything about it. But at the same time, like, I can't have this. We can't do this. I mean, people in town are calling, why have you not shut that Facebook group off by now? This is ridiculous. So I did call John. I said, okay, after about a week and a half or so,
Yeah.
I called John. I said, look, this is getting out of hand. Like, people are literally calling for, police officers, not just ours, police officers. This is why police officers get shot and stuff like that. And I told John, I said, we're fixing to turn this Facebook group off. He said, yeah, go for it. So we actually, unfortunately, I hated it, and we kind of had a little back and forth.
Yeah, we did.
John was like, "Man, this is kind of the way it needs to go," and I kind of pushed back a little bit. I'm like, "This is ridiculous. I should not have to." This is the way you probably feel too. The citizens in my community rely on this Facebook group to interact with their police department, and by gosh, I shouldn't have to shut off a Facebook group that's been in place for 10 years with all this good history of all this interactions because one guy shows up, and now all these people from around the country that don't even know us have ruined it. But we did. We ended up shutting down that Facebook group. I created a Cave City Police Department Facebook page, which we now do not allow commenting on, period. It is a weird techie issue, though. You can't there's no like switch that you can flip in the settings to do that. You've got to and I'm the one having to do it right now. And unfortunately, it's causing us not to post very much stuff for the police department anymore. Again, which I think is very unfair to us, but that's the way it is.
And that was our disagreement because when he called me about this, and remember what I said. This all pass. This too shall pass. Well, it just wouldn't pass. But I would say, listen, Mayor, I really think this is a forum. I would keep it open. I think these people, will look foolish. I think the citizens, they were already starting to push back.
Oh yeah, you know how it goes. There were citizens getting on there just bashing them back, punching back.
And I was convinced, look, I really think you should keep it open. But then the comments kept coming and coming and coming. I thought, well, maybe I was wrong about this. But that's the question you have to ask yourself. Do you want to have that much open dialogue to the point that it may just dilute the Facebook page? Or do you want to restart and not allow any comments? And I remember that was a week's discussion between you and I about what to do. I was driving to Alabama talking to you about this.
Yeah.
But I think you made the right decision.
That's what we ended up doing. We created the Facebook page, and boy, we had a couple of people that commented after that, even that reached out to me from different states or whatever. You cowards! Now you're hiding behind your Facebook page that doesn't allow comments and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Well, two more real quick issues because I know we're about to run out of time.
Yeah.
But have a social media policy and put it on your Facebook page so that people know. Again, call us. A lot of cities have called us about this, and they go different directions. But there's some pretty basic rules we can work through. So if you ever have need of a Facebook policy, again, go to our website or call us because again, I'm very interested in this issue. The other issue to keep in mind is what to do about the council meeting. Now, Gene Short did not show up to the council meeting, but
he threatened to.
And we were thinking that he may show up to a council meeting, and we're talking about what to do about it. One thing to remember when it comes to council meetings, the council and the mayor, of course, has the ability to determine the rules of its proceedings. So now, if you allow people to speak who has a 3-minute public comment period? Okay, so if I want to show up and talk about how great you all are for 3 minutes, I hope you allow me, right? Because I'm member of the public. Well, you may have but anyway, let me come in. You can't then have Gene Short say that John Wilkerson's full of it, and I think you're terrible. You can't then bar him from doing it. So if you allow the comment period, much like comments on Facebook, you have to allow them all. Now, so I would encourage you to develop the way that you have the 3-minute comment period, make sure that you have it, make sure you enforce it across the board. There's also the idea of Mr. Short could have been asked to be escorted out of the council meeting if he got too unruly. But I'm telling you, that is such a high bar. I would almost want to see a weapon involved before you take that step. And I'm overselling that just a touch because you get real dicey because you are in a public forum that is meant for people to watch city business. Now, if they're disrupted to the point that you can't get city business done, then you have to make a hard decision. My first advice would be to adjourn the meeting and move on. Arrest is the absolute last resort. And that's what we were struggling with.
We did.
What to do.
Well, because, so he had posted on Facebook actually and said, hey, everybody, I'm going to the council meeting. I think you should come down there too. And we're going to let this mayor and blah, blah, blah know what we think about this. Lots of supporters of our police department poured into that council meeting. He did not set foot in the council meeting that night. But I had called John and I said, I'm already getting questions about, all right, how far are we going to let this go before we're going to arrest this guy? And John said, oh man, that is the last thing you really want. You do not want to arrest a citizen at a council meeting if you can absolutely help it at all. I said, fine. We talked about that. I said, if he gets too crazy, I'm just going to say to everyone in the room, we can't conduct business because this guy right here I'm sorry, we're going to adjourn the meeting and we'll try again next month. And then we're going to leave it at that. And I told our police officers, this guy, if he shows up, he will not be arrested in this council meeting. Obviously, if there's a weapon, that all things are changed.
Right.
But generally speaking, I said, I had a few officers in there. They said, do you want all the officers? No, I don't want, we're not going to have 30 police officers lining the room and all that. That's honestly just asking for trouble. But we did have a few. We had a few kind of across the street just in case. We had no idea what was going to happen.
Right.
It actually went totally fine and nothing had to happen. But
last thing, I know we're 2 minutes over real quick, but I do want to say, remember the FOIA. There was FOIAs after this. The chief's termination letter is for a termination letter. He was not terminated, but the FOIA request was for the termination letter. The 911 calls got FOI'd by the sheriff or to the sheriff's department. The sheriff then said it's $5 per 911 call, which is not the rule, and he corrected himself on that. Well, the sheriff didn't say it; the captain actually said it, and the sheriff corrected him. But make sure you're ready for the FOI request. Make sure you give over all documents that you have to give over. The larger point of this whole thing is that there's so many lessons that we talk about all the time that really come into this. It's not just about doing what the mayor did or what the guy in Fort Smith did and being polite and moving on. There is something behind this more often than not, and there's going to be something after this. So be ready for this, and you're going to have to rely on your city attorney, rely on us to navigate it. But I promise you, this too shall pass, much like it did for Mayor Anderson here.
Yeah, and it took a while. I know, like I said, we're out of time. So just a few little closing thoughts here. Number one is, again, going back to the beginning of it, you're going to have pressure from people. They're going to be calling you in real time saying, you need to do this, you need to do this. Why are we not doing this? This is the law, when actually that's not the law. They don't understand.
Right.
I had law enforcement officers calling me saying, this is the law right here. Actually, they were wrong. That was not the law. Yeah. Be prepared, number one, to stand up to your own citizens, unfortunately, and say, no, we can't do this. And like I told my people, we're going to keep our heads cool. We're going to stay calm, because the second you don't, you're going to screw up and you're liable to get yourself in a lawsuit. So that's number one, is just being prepared, keeping yourself calm, having a plan in place. We didn't really have a plan in place when this showed up because I just wasn't expecting it, but we do now. Get your signs on your doors in City Hall. We do now. After I talked to Joe, we didn't at the time. We do now. You can't walk in. We have a vault. We're in an old bank building. We have a vault in there that has tons of personnel records and all that. You can't go walking in the vault and start filming everything. You can't walk into the finance manager's office. We got payroll stuff laying all over the table. You can't expect them to sweep all this stuff up and make it a clean office for him to walk in and video. Stuff like that. The other thing is, it's really discouraging for your people. It's going to be very painful and discouraging. We had some calls. We won't even say them in this room. I would keep a record of them. We did. We kept a record. The voicemails, for instance, if you have if your phone system allows it, you can actually get those and download the voicemails. Might not be the worst thing, at least for a few months, to keep them. That's what we did. We kept documentation of all that, but eventually I had to tell our people, hey, this will pass. It may get worse before it gets better, and it certainly did, but it will pass. But I think the main thing is just being straight with people and keeping yourself calm and just getting over it. Don't take the bait.
Don't take the bait. Well, let us know if we can help. We're always here for you, and I'll see y'all soon. Take care, y'all.
Yep. Thanks. Oh yeah. Also, the QR code. If you're getting credit for the session, the QR code's up here. And if for some reason it's not working for you, or you can't get the QR code scanned, there is technically a clipboard in the back that you can write your name down. But if you want to take a minute and get that. Thanks, sir. Good for you. Oh, Random Patriot. Yeah.
I found you new past because I invited me.
Yeah.
Well, one of the better things we had.
Yeah, I bet you did. Yeah. Free advertising.
Okay, so look at this.
Yeah, well, you just scan this QR code.